Hi everybody, thanks for joining me on this video. We'll be covering some techniques that'll add power to your playing, like polyphonic ideas, chromatic ideas, arpeggiated ideas. We'll use some examples from some of my tunes, and we'll talk a little bit about phrasing and tones, and even a little segment about harmonics. So tune in. Okay, the first thing we're going to work on is tune-up. Pretty easy thing. So we'll start with the A string. Why the A? Well, to me it's the most stable string. It gets bent the least, and it tends to hold its tuning. Make sure you got that one, then we'll go through all six. Okay. E. Hope you know what that one is. That's a G. Check the A again, because if you got a floating bridge, you're going to need to do this a bunch of times. And then the, oh, just kidding, that's the E. Again, if you're out of tune very much, you better go through it again. All right. First thing I do before I practice, play, or anything, especially if I have the option, is to do a little warm-up. And the easiest thing about a warm-up is the name kind of explains it, warm up. So just like runners do, you want to stretch and work up to it slowly. And the easiest thing to do is, if you're in a climate where you have winters, you need to get your hands at least to body temperature, which is, depending on your state of tune, somewhere in the 90s. And if you're just coming out of the cold, just run your hands under some warm water or hot air or something. Get your hand at least warm enough to where it's not all stiff. Then start a little easy warm-up. There's a million different warm-up exercises, and well, just try something a little unusual here. This will be a scale that you don't use too much in music, which makes it a good warm-up exercise because it's real symmetrical, and it's 3 notes to a string. I'm using alternate picking during my warm-up, and we're just going to take it nice and easy, just kind of relax and find a tempo. I'll do it slowly to show you the pattern I'm talking about. And then, actually, the next note is one whole step away. We're doing whole steps, that is every 2 frets. When you get to the B string, of course, you're going to have to move up 2 frets. And come on back down. It's not a very relaxing scale, but it's nice for the warm-up because it gets you your left hand moving positions, and you're stretching your first or fourth finger out. So you're covering some ground with your left hand, and it's a good picking exercise. Any speed you want to do it. And then try it up on the next fret. But anytime you do your warm-up, don't do anything to the point of pain where it's hurting in your arm or anything like that. Just, like I said, take it easy and work up to it slow because, well, warm up. That's all it is. Triplets are a happy feel. When you're playing fast, it helps me to keep time if I accent every certain group of notes. Since it's triplets, I'll accent every 3rd or every 6th note. Here, at this speed, every 6th. Right with my foot. And then that way you can, it's easier keeping time than if you're sitting there just blurring notes. And one of the things about playing guitar or playing music in general is that when you're playing by yourself, somebody should be able to just solo you playing and be able to feel the time. And hopefully hear the music at the same time too. So remember that. I mean, everything you play should, even in your warm-up, should have rhythm and some kind of accent. Always helps the rhythm. Okay, that's a whole tone pattern. You do it up and down the neck, moving up 1 fret each time. Another thing you can do is a pattern that'll work over diminished chords. Again, a diminished chord is not something you really sit on for a very long time in rock and roll, so we'll just use this as a warm-up exercise. Same pattern, really. Sort of in the same places as you would the whole tone thing, but just do a whole step, half step. That'll work over a diminished chord. Say you've been doing your scales and so forth, or this warm-up exercise, and what happens to me, maybe it's because I'm left-handed, but my right hand starts to get a little tight. And anytime that happens, it's just your body's way of telling you, hey, you need to stretch it out, get the blood flowing again, and it's no disgrace to stop and rest for a second. So what I'll do, especially if time is tight, is do a little left-hand exercise while my right hand's recuperating. Here we're going to put our fingers 1 fret apart on the same string, in this case the B string, then pull 1 finger out to the adjacent string, in this case the G string, and do a little hammer-on to try to keep it in time. Now put that finger back, pick it up with the second finger. Why are you doing this, Steve? Well, the reason these fingers are anchored is so that you won't be flopping them around and doing something like this. It forces you to use your finger and nothing else. Now, if you're into two-handed stuff, you may be saying, that's great, but I'm into two-handed stuff. Well, try it. Do it with your other hand. If you can't pick very fast with your hand, if you're slower with your right hand, do it at a slower tempo. Okay, next we're going to do some scales. Oh no, scales. I thought this was a tape with licks and stuff that I could use. Yes, it is, and we're getting to that as soon as possible. The way that we're going to do the scales is going to help you do the licks. I promise you, learn the scales this way is going to be the basis for almost all the fast licks you hear in tonal music. This is actually 21 fingerings of scales, but I'm going to show it a way to think of it that's really easy, and it's actually just 7. There's 7 tones in the scale. We're going to do 7 different fingerings, and along the way, if you want to, you can learn the modes real quickly. We're going to start in A with a A major scale, 2 octaves. We're going to learn each scale starting on our first finger and our second or third, depending on the situation, and our fourth finger. So each scale is going to have 3 different fingerings of the exact same notes. Okay, first of all, A major. Starting with the first finger. In this case, I'm doing most of the stretching between the third and fourth finger, trying to keep my first finger. Anytime you practice scales or anything that you practice that involves picking or a lot of notes, play it fast when you're ready to play it fast. Okay, we're going to move up with our first finger to the second note of the A major scale. So it's the same scale, but the fingering's different, of course. We're going 1 note higher, too. Same exact set of notes, but starting with our first finger on the third note. If you're looking for the fast forward button because you say, I've already learned scales, just hold on a second. I'm going to show you some ways of using the scales. Fourth note of the scale. I'm finding ways to finger it to where I don't have to move my hand. All I'm doing at the most is stretching 1 finger, 1 fret. And then in most cases, it's the fourth finger. Okay, fifth note, we're just moving up the scale. Six. And 7th. might want to go up to the top, come back down. Now, this is all just starting with the first finger. Now let's throw a little monkey wrench in for everybody who's got it down so pat. Let's try it the exact same thing, only starting on the second finger or third finger. Same exact notes as doing it with your first finger. Same exact note. But we're using a different finger, so we're getting a whole different shape happening. And for our next note, it seems more logical to me to use the third finger than the second finger. So with this pattern, we're going to use our second or third, depending. And it's the fourth note again. This one, use your second finger because it fits the pattern better. Then fifth note, this one, use your third finger. Sixth note, use your third finger again. Seventh note, third finger one more time. And so we're back to A again. Now, one more time, only we're going to start every scale or every point of the scale with our fourth finger. A little stretch. So we're going to continue on up the scale, starting every scale point with our fourth finger. So what you end up with, this way, this way, this way. Three different ways of playing every pattern. Continue that up and down the neck until you know it. Okay, once you've got the idea of playing the scale straight, you know, this note to this note and coming back, let's try doing some variations. Try walking up the scale just on two strings. Patterns, that's all it is. Sequences based on the major scale. To illustrate this point about the scales and how you can use them, and well, how much I use them, and most people I've seen use them, we're going to just play over three chords that are diatonic or in the same scale as that A major scale. It'll be F sharp minor and D and A. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the first of these big three topics I mentioned before is going to be arpeggio ideas, arpeggio licks, working from the notes of a chord is really all it is. If you consider a triad or a basic chord as having three notes, in rock and roll sometimes it only has two, but for the purposes of our discussion we're going to consider it has three notes, the tonic or the root, the third, and the fifth. So when I say, in the A major, we're going to talk about A, C sharp, and E as being the first, third, and fifth, something like that. And the whole idea of arpeggiated lick ideas is to allow you to outline the chord and, basically suggest the chord by playing one note at a time. Obviously, the easiest way to do that is to play the chord one note at a time. And that works great, but you cover a lot of ground quickly, and all of a sudden you're up at the top of the neck before you know it. So we're going to try to do some patterns that repeat a little bit more and involve some other notes besides the chord notes that are based off the chord notes. First one will be an A minor pattern, A minor seventh actually. We'll do first, third, fifth, and one more, the seventh.